just that easy. Welcome back to Studio B for the second Prep-isode. Apart from the fever dream that you witnessed at the beginning of the episode, the copper is still in this form. So at the end of the last episode, you remember I was going to anneal this in the oven. There was a little snag with that. So I didn't realize, but there was a small coating of oil on this. I don't know if it was from the factory or maybe leached out of the coating, but when this got up to around 500 degrees Fahrenheit, the smoke was less than pleasant. So maybe using a toaster oven or an outside heat source would be the best suggestion for that. Not the oven inside. So that aside, so in the intro, you may have seen I had a 3-strand braiding block, which I had used to create 3-strand copper rope. So that's come out really well for me so far. I've got several meters of it already prepared, but I really want to show you guys the process of making one of these things. Really simple. You may have noticed the block of wood. This is going to serve a dual purpose other than a club. I'm actually going to use this to create a 4-strand or a 5-strand. I'm not sure yet, so we'll see when we get to that. But I'll show you the, how to use a saw, because I'm terrible at using a saw. So some of the techniques that I use to try to get at least parallel cuts. So that's coming up. I'll show you how to braid. We'll show you how to do some opening up of that braid and some flattening and some other really fancy work that you can do with just some simple old trash copper if you know how to treat it right. So I've got a rat's nest here that I have to kind of sort out, and I'm going to finish the annealing process. As you can see, this has changed color, but you really want it almost a deep purple, and when it's a deep purple, that means that it's incredibly soft, and that'll really benefit me when I go to do the braiding on this, so that it does not snap mid-braid. Okay, so we'll get set up for that, and we'll see you in a second. So with that torch work done there, the squishing was a bit necessary to increase the surface area of this wire for the most effective use of my torch. So that's why I did actually squish it together previously there. But after it was annealed, I just ran it through my little block again, my little piece of tubing, and that straightened it out quite nicely without hardening it. And so that's all taken care of. Neat, tidy, ready to go, ready to be braided. You'll also notice the return of our copper and vinegar or acetic acid mix. This has got a bit of copper in solution right now. This is why it's so green. And inside is literal slush. So it's quite cold in the studio, and this acid is, it's not very strong acid, so there's quite a mixture of water in this. But the reason that I have this out, and I've got about 100 feet of copper wire soaking in there currently. I want to strip that wire nice and clean and get it, super glossy. I'll also be taking a portion of that wire, and then I'll be doing an artificial patina on it as well, so turning it a little bit green, maybe even pitting it. And what that's going to do is going to add texture to each single braid that I create. And so if you can picture, you had a single strand of copper going down here that just looked like copper. This one has a green patina, and this one is, let's say it's purple. I've got it colored purple. So when you twist that together, you're going to have interlocking weaves of different colors and textures. And that's one simple way, just in process, to be able to create a huge amount of detail with almost no effort. But I'll get more into the details of that when I actually start to braid. So I've got this, and it is cold, but I'm going to bring it in the house and warm it up, because acid works quite a bit better when it is warmer. The science people in the comments can confirm that for me. But this is going to go away, and we are going to get on to the main topic for this video. And that really essentially comes down to creating rope. Now when I say braid, it's not like a plaited braid or a hair braid, a French braid, something like that. This is going to be a rope braid. So you're essentially twisting the ropes or the wires and pinching it into something that is tangibly stronger than they are alone. But one of the added benefits of that is, when done well and in something that picks up luster, you can create something quite beautiful. So, to explain what's going on, I feel like I kind of need to start from the beginning, and it would be beneficial for me to have a 6-strand braiding block. So I've got it kind of laid out here just to show you guys an idea of what's in my head and effectively what I'd like to have come out as an end result. So this 3-strand braiding block is just a piece of hardwood that I had cut end grain. So taking a 2-inch section off of this, I just cut that off. And one of the things, I wasn't lying when I said that I'm crap with a saw, a hand saw. I really am. And one of the reasons I say that is, so this plane right here, or this surface face, when I'm cutting here, I would really like to have these two planes be parallel to each other. And the reason for that is, when it's feeding the copper wire, if that is not equal, if it's at a tilt, it's going to want to push this block out. So you can see on this, that comes to a point. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve on the next block that I make here for you guys. So this 6-strand block. Material choice, you might be wondering, why wood? Why not something like aluminum? I have access to aluminum. I mean, that's an aluminum billet. That would work. I mean, this really would work. Brass, sure, why not? Just, go all out. And but I think for this purpose, the wood really serves a couple of purposes. One is that it's super cheap, and I can make however many out of this block of wood. I mean, a forest worth of braiding blocks. Or I could make one out of this, and it would wear and do fine and stuff like that. And I may yet, but certainly for this purpose, and the amount that I wish to have, like 6s and 3s and potentially 5s and other things like that, this wood is just going to be perfect. So along with that preamble, I'll show you a couple of little tricks I do, certainly to try to get a cut that is parallel to itself. And I mean, the inside, we can worry about that later. So I'm going to get this chucked up in the vise, and then I'll show you exactly how I do that. So just before I chuck it up in the vise, I'm going to take something that is, 2 inches, and I'm going to stand that up. It's got to be sturdy. And I'm going to put this on the surface, a flat surface that this face is going to ride easily on. So when I spin it, it kind of stays there. And so then I just take a Sharpie at this point, rest it on that 2-inch block, get it contacting the wood, then just spin the wood around, making sure that face is in contact the entire time. So it requires a couple of flat surfaces, but ultimately you do end up with a line that's going to be parallel to this face, and you're going to get marker on your finger. So here we are with our line all the way around, and we have the luxurious 2600 Superior XT Ergo with the full complement of rust and silicone. So that's wonderful. This is a saw on loan, and I'm gonna just score all the way around with this saw. Right on that line. I literally have to do this to get a straight cut with a handsaw. There are people in the world that could eyeball this on one side and put a 2-inch mark and cut it, and these sides would be parallel or damn near close to it. I do not possess that skill. I am the guy that messes up homemade bread. You know, when you go to get homemade bread and it's like this, that's me. I mean, could be better. Could be worse, though. This'll work. This'll work. Sharp. Yep, it will work. So I went ahead and took the bark off of it, and or tree skin, or whatever you want to call it, and we have two surfaces that are parallel to each other. I cut out the template for the 6-strand, and it fits nicely on top of there. I mean, none of this has to be perfect. I mean, yeah, let's just say 80%. 80% is good enough in this. So if these things don't fit exactly perfectly to each other, I mean, it's not gonna, explode, but it will maybe cause some issues when you are going to feed it. But so what I want to do here essentially is transfer these lines to this, and the easiest way to do that, now that I have it on there, is just with it in place, just put a little tick mark wherever they hit. The return of our old friend, scrap angle, is going to help us continue these lines down the side of our block. Again, you just take it, set it inside of a perfect 90-degree angle. And then just continue your mark. In the last portion, we just want to carry these marks across the top. can see here one of my marks went cattywampus a little bit and a little off center, but that's okay. So if I make sure that I cut just to the side of this line, right here, if I cut right to that side of this line, I should be pretty much on center of this cross. So even though this mark is off center, it's still a decent guideline. I'll just make sure that I cut right along this edge. The next step is going to be creating this tapered section here, and I have to kind of decide how much of a shoulder I want to have on this thing. So you can see on this one it's roughly about 1/2 inch, and this block is about 3/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 inch. So maybe an 1.25 inches in total. This one's a little bit bigger. I found this one where it was shorter. I was wanting to twist a little bit. So, you know, in theory, if I make it a little bit longer, as it threads over this, it should give it a lot more purchase and not want it to twist in this or this direction. So, where that one has roughly around 1/2 inch, this one I'd like to make a little bit more, so roughly around 3/4 of an inch. Which should hit around there, maybe here, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take that mark and just kind of continue it all the way along. So we have our block laid out for the next portion, which is going to be cutting. And this here, again, a tapered cut. So one of my plans is, and certainly how I achieved the other block, would be to cut this thing on an angle, like so, and cut it from the edge right to the center. And in doing so, I'll create a groove, 6 grooves in fact, and from that point I'm going to knock off in a taper all of these edges. And what that should achieve ultimately is a 6-strand braiding block. So I'll do some shots in between. Again, my sawing is less than admirable, but it should be able to get this job done. Definitely want to cut on this side of the line. Oh, you. Going to rescore these lines before I do any more refinement on this, just so I don't lose that as reference to the lines on the side. This doubles quite well as a rasp as well. I don't have a rasp, otherwise I would be using one. But this, I mean, you're able to get a bit of a contour and shape that a little bit. It's working out pretty good. So after some more refining and some work with a file and some sandpaper, we have this, which kind of looks a little bit like a wooden bullet. Right, so this thing very close to being done. The layout turned out pretty good, and it's all pretty even. There's a few more processes I want to do to this thing though. This is one of them. the last process is going to be just giving it a bit of a wax coating. Try to help it with the slip factor. So there we have it, a 6-strand braiding block. It's quite a bit more substantial than the 3-strand, but the construction is almost identical. So I'm really excited to give this thing a shot and see if I can actually get a nice 6-strand braided rope. This is a 3-strand, and the detail in that is quite nice. But with the 6-strand, I think I can achieve quite a bit more, as well as something more substantial. So I'm going to get set up for that, and I'll be back in just a second.